Death. The destroyer of worlds.
A New World. And the new Oppenheimer film traces the science, policy, and politics driving America's quest to develop and then use the atomic bomb, altering the course of history.
We've all heard about Einstein and Ziller's letter to Roosevelt warning him the Germans could make a bomb, and I know what it means for the Nazis to have a bomb.
Did it ever feel like this is going to be complicated for the audience, or did you have any concerns about it being, a difficult thing for an audience to grasp, or did it feel that it was something that people could grasp?
Well, it's like, fuck it, you know? I mean...
Now his highly anticipated new movie, Interstellar, is set in the near future.
In our era, Nolan is known.
Complex.
Complicated. Featured on Time's list of the most influential people in the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Mr. Christopher Nolan!
An idea. Resilient, highly contagious.
As you well know by now, the new Batman movie, The Dark Knight, opens today. It is sold out.
Brilliant film. And honestly, Christopher, I don't know how you keep topping yourself. What's your secret?
What has been the project that has impacted you the most, Chris?
So, Chris, how good is your memory?
I started making films when I was a kid, when I was, I think, 7 years old. Making films using my dad's Super 8 camera and little action figures, doing stop motion films, a little bit of animation and a certain amount of live action. And I just carried on making films as I grew up.
I think the first film I actually remember going to see, I was very young, was Snow White and Seven Dwarfs.
Make a wish into the well, that's all you have to do.
And I remember very clearly being affected by it, particularly the scene where the evil queen turns into an old crone, the poison apple, being very frightened of that, sort of hiding behind the seats. I think as far as influential movies and things that sort of just show me the potential of films, it was a very special time in terms of blockbusters. So George Lucas's first Star Wars it came out when I was 7 years old.
The people in this crowd will soon be among almost 40,000 who have seen a new science fiction movie at North Park Cinema 2. The movie is called Star Wars, and since it opened here 9 days ago, capacity crowds have filled the 1,100 seats in the theater almost daily. Why are you waiting in such a long line to see a movie?
Well, I'm a real science fiction fan. I've got hundreds of science fiction books at home, and I think this is going to be a science fiction classic.
I did have a very special experience of going to see 2001 on a film print because Star Wars was so successful. They re-released that film the year after that. So I went to see that with my dad in Leicester Square. I remember that experience very clearly. I remember just feeling the enormity of the image and the potential for that screen to kind of just take you anywhere. I saw it when I was 7 years old, and I think I understood it certainly as well then as I do now, maybe better. I think maybe better because you take it for granted, you experience it, and the beauty and the magnitude of the images and the feeling of traveling across the solar system or whatever. I mean that's the point of the film.
One thing.
Straight away, the film momentum from Christopher Nolan seemed to spark something in both critics and audiences. And though the film was complex and unconventional, people found the film a refreshing watch.
My car. This is your car. Oh, you're in a playful mood.
That's Guy Pearce in Memento, which won the Sundance Screenplay Prize for its tricky story of a man with short-term memory loss. He can only remember things for a few minutes at a time.
I'm not a killer. I'm just someone who wanted to make things right.
Memento was also awarded with several awards.
Christopher Nolan for Memento.
And got nominated for Best Original Screenplay and Best Film Editing at the Academy Award.
It's an ingenious film, and this is a movie you really can't go out for popcorn halfway through this film. Each scene really interlocks, and if you miss someone in the middle there, you're going to be completely lost.
This is a tremendous honor. I think our film, perhaps more than any other, benefited from people's willingness to see something a little different from what everybody else was offering.
It's my favorite film so far this year.
They create the feeling in us that he has.
Right.
We are just as confused as he is. We don't know anything more. We know less and less as the movie goes on.
I mean, I think it was Stanley Kubrick who said the best way to learn how to make a film is to make a film. And I certainly found that to be the case. I couldn't get into film school, and I started just making my own films on 16mm. And I think, in retrospect, that was fortunate for me. I think I was better suited to just making films and learning from that than I would have been to learning in a more formal structure.
We got to the end of it, and I thought, why does everyone complain about Hollywood? This is easy. We showed up, we had a good idea for a movie, we made a good movie. The profit was supposed to come for our partners and financiers, supposed to come from the North American distribution rights, theatrical distribution.
I had a close shave. The cops tried to lock me down because the Glock they found was stolen. That's how I'm rolling. Calvin Klein's no friend of mine, so I don't like Marky or the Monarchy. Don't start me up like a Rolling Stone. I'll leave you soaking like Macaulay Culkin on my lawn.
And then we tried to sell it. We screen it for all these movie theaters and we get completely blanked, right? No one wanted it. And the answer was, well, no, I get it, but the audience won't get it. This is really what motivated a lot of my career and a lot of the way I've approached my career. There's such contempt for the audience. That the audience was a bunch of fucking idiots, right? That they wouldn't get it. And I thought to myself, God, I've met some of these executives. Like, they're not, what makes you think you're that much smarter than the audience? Because you're not. What had happened in the background, as we were taking it to festivals, Steven Soderbergh somehow had watched a print of this thing and started going to parties and just ridiculing movie executives about, have you seen this movie that none of you wanted to fucking buy? If we can't put this movie into the world, then we've failed as a business.
What I had found is every time we showed it to an audience, people would get it. You know, not everybody, but people would. And as we showed it, as we took it out on the festival circuit, we started at Venice and then went to Deauville and Toronto.
This year, the Toronto International Film Festival is absolutely jam-packed with celebrities. Just a few days into the movie marathon, and we've already seen Willem Dafoe, Joan Allen, and festival favorite Jeff Bridges.
We got very, very good responses in those festival screenings. People would, they would laugh at the right things, you know, the jokes. They would sort of get into the rhythm of it very nicely. That was a great relief to us, because for about a year we really hadn't known whether the film would ever see the light of day. We were eventually able to try experimenting with short films where you stripped it down and you said, okay, if we shoot black and white film stock so that we can get a bit of an expressionist style cheaply and quickly, if we do it predominantly handheld camera, so we're not trying to ape larger movie-making techniques with the dolly and so forth, and things that actually require very expensive equipment, can you create a very stripped-down, very tight production machine that would then be applied to making a feature film, where you sort of learned, in a sense, how to make a short film in a weekend. Everything in the making of the film was aimed at trying to be as extreme as we could whilst connecting with an audience. And there was an enormous amount of skepticism around the project at every stage. The good thing was, with the screenplay, for example, when you showed it to people, they either loved it or they hated it. There was nothing in between, and people couldn't fake it. When I look back at the leaps I've made in my career and the progression of films, there's no question that Memento was by far the biggest leap I ever had to take. Because however small it might seem as a commercial proposition compared to these big films, you've gone from making a movie on weekends with your friends and your own money to having, you know, name actors who you've seen in huge movies, and then spending millions of dollars of somebody else's money. It's a huge responsibility. Well, Following is it's a no-budget, black and white 16mm film that I made with friends of mine in London. And we were all working full-time when we made it, so we could only shoot 1 day a week. We would get together on Saturdays and shoot this film and shoot sort of 15 minutes of footage every week. And it took about a year of filming to get it all finished.
Other people are interesting to me. If you never listened to other people's conversations on the bus or on the tube, seen somebody on the street that looks interesting or is behaving slightly oddly or something like that, wondered what their lives involve, what they do, where they come from, where they go to.
I was living in London on Tottenham Court Road, just off Oxford Street, which is the west end of London. It's incredibly crowded, very much with tourists. So as soon as we went out of my flat, and in fact, Jerry, you see him walking along at the beginning, he's just walking out of where he used to live into the throng of Tottenham Court Road. And I just became interested one day walking along with this notion of, instead of seeing, you know, a crowd of people, say, okay, who's that person? Where are they going? And I didn't, you know, follow people around or anything like that, but it just sort of, the notion stuck with me, and combined that with the experience of getting burgled and coming home and seeing your door to your flat smashed open.
It's like a diary. They hide it, but actually they want someone to see it. That's what I do. You can see on the display, flip sides of the same coin. This way they know that someone's seen it. That's what it's all about. Interrupting someone's life, making them see all the things that they took for granted. Like when they go back and buy all this stuff from the shelves of the insurance money, they'll have to think for the first time in a long time why they wanted all this stuff, what it's for. You take it away, you show them what they had.
So I had this idea for a story about a guy who couldn't remember anything, took to tattooing the clues on his body. But right from the beginning, I remember feeling almost annoyed. I sat down to write it. I was very interested in it. I sat down to write it, and I thought, oh shit, okay, this is the wrong, inspiration coming to the wrong brother, right? This is a visual story, and I'm gonna write a cool story out of it. Chris was moving to, Emma was already there, Chris was moving out to LA finally, and I've been sort of pestering him to make the move. We were both born with American citizenship, so I was like, you gotta come over, man, don't be in England, it's not. So we drove my dad's car out together, because I had it in DC, it was just racking up parking tickets, and I was like, look, I've heard in LA you need a car. In that moment, we got to Minnesota and ran out of things to say to each other, and I pitched him the story for Memento, and he got really quiet. And I knew it's this little brother thing, right? When I'd show up with a piece of music or a movie or something that he hadn't found, you know, usually the relationship was so one-sided that when you showed up with something and you realized, oh shit, this is kind of cool, they get a little quiet.
I just thought it was such a fantastic idea. And he combined it with this idea of a quest for revenge, and a guy who'd taken to trying to systematize his life and put information on his body in the form of tattoos. The reason he was excited about the idea, and I totally shared this, is that it's not amnesia. It's a form of amnesia, but it's different from what we think of as amnesia. And his point was that in an amnesia movie, there are no rules. Anything can be true. I mean, absolutely anything can be true. You know, the protagonist can be anything. He can be, you know, the killer, he can be this, he can be, you know, with no rhyme or reason. To me, it's a really interesting area, because it's the area between the person you are now and the person you once were. How do you sort of sit there and look at yourself and say, well, how did I get here? And, you know, who am I now? And, you know, compared with what I was 15 years ago, for example. It seems an interesting area of the personality to explore, really. You know, I said to him, well, can I take it and write a screenplay from it while you work on your story, you know, and get it the way you want? And we both decided right away that by far the most interesting way of approaching that concept was subjectively, to tell the story in the first person. So he went off to write his short story, I went off to, write the screenplay.
He looked at all kinds of different ways of reordering information, all kinds of different ways of structuring this guy's story to rise to the challenge I set him. Because I said, when I'd heard his story, I said, look, that would be amazing if you could find a way that when you read the story, you're in this guy's head.
That way, when we meet a character, we don't know, just like the protagonist, how he's met that person, whether he's even met that person before, or whether or not they should be trusted, that kind of thing.
I was sort of sitting around my apartment one day trying to write the script, drinking too much coffee and thinking about it and banging my head against the wall, and I suddenly realized, oh, well, if you invert the structure, if you tell it in reverse chronology, then you're denying the audience the information that the protagonist is denied. Mm-hmm. So in one sense, you're putting the audience in this guy's place.
Now, where was I?
Could you whisper in my ear the things you wanna feel? I'll give you anything to feel it coming. Do you wake up on your own? I wonder where you are and live with all your faults. I wanna wake up where you are. I won't say anything at all, so why don't you smile? Yeah, we're gonna let it slide. Don't you love the life you kill? The priest is on the phone. Your father hit the wall. Your mom disowned you. Don't suppose I'll ever know. So means to be a man.